A busy week ended on Friday in South Africa. That's after President Cyril Ramaphosa gave his State of the Nation address outlining the government's priorities for the year. And as expected, reactions have been pouring in. Fitch Ratings says the president offered only partial detail on key policy areas like the electricity sector and underscored a weak outlook for the country's credit worthiness. My colleague in South Africa, Katlego Ligodi, joins us now to tell us how South Africans are reacting to the address and also give us an outlook for the week. Well, let's begin this conversation with what responses we're getting so far after President Ramaphosa's State of the Nation's address.
Well, a very good afternoon to you. Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa acknowledged in a State of the Nation address that growth had stalled in the country, exacerbating high levels of unemployment and increasing the hardships for men and women on the ground here in South Africa. Well, welcomed was a brief plans to stimulate the economy, well, growth, whereby even though in a speech the president was not clear in terms of specifics and timeframes, he acknowledged that the time has come for ministers and governors alike to just do away with rhetoric and just start putting fuel to just, the wheels in motion. In this regard, he had a meeting with the economic cluster before presenting the State of the Nation's address, with many people optimistic that, as he stated, that most of the fine lines and the time frames will be given by the finance minister, Tito Mboweni, who's expected to present his budget speech on the 26th of February, which is sometime next week.
Well, while we await that budget speech to be presented, Fitch Ratings says it's unconvinced by President Ramaphosa's reform promises. Is that in line with the soundbite you're getting from the streets?
Most definitely, sentiments from certain quarters around are that much of President Cyril Ramaphosa's speech was a repetition of what is already, in the public domain. Many people saying that we acknowledge the hardships that exist, whether it's in terms of the SOEs or just the issue of energy alike. But then most we're just waiting to hear, for him to just go into specifics in terms of him starting the speech by saying that this time around we're just going to stop or do away with the rhetorics, but then also talk about implementation. Many were expecting that in this regard, there would be some sort of direction in terms of implementation of what has been said, previously. However big was the announcement on renewable energy procurement and the release of broadband spectrum by the end of this year. This remains to be seen, of course, with rating agencies like Fitch, as you rightly stated. They're really expecting detailed timelines and, among others, policy certainty where these plans to turn the economy around are concerned.
But for South Africans generally, what are they expecting from President Ramaphosa's proposals?
Well, South Africans on the ground are really expecting to see change in their living conditions, well, for jobs to be created, for starters, and for issues of corruption and the looting of state resources to be done away with by the sixth administration as it assumes office. Many people that I've spoken to prior to the State of the Nation's address, even after the State of the Nation's address, seemingly, discontent at a rhetoric by governors, while the crisis on the ground continues. So many, just waiting to see what, fine prints will be there in the budget speech that will at least, put the wheels in motion in terms of, all of these plans that have been, rallied around every year, but then implementation and the reality on the ground being something that is absolutely different. So they're just waiting for implementation, and they're eager to see what, the budget speech will have in place in terms of turning the economy around and creating well-needed jobs.
Now, what about Market Street now? Bring us up to speed on how the rand is performing at this time and what is driving market sentiments.
Well, the rand started the day trading at 0.32% firmer at 14 rand 85 cents to the US dollar, 19.41 to the pound, and 16.14 to the euro. Well, stocks had closed flat, with the Johannesburg Stock Exchange as top 40 index 0.01% up, and the broad-based all share index up 0.05%. So we hear that emerging markets on the ground, alike at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, may also take their cue as well from the recovery in commodities and signs that China's efforts to stem down on the coronavirus, or those efforts are a positive, feedback coming out of that in terms of what is going to affect the markets, local markets here on the ground.
What about corporate news? Is there anyone on the radar for the week?
Of course, most definitely. In terms of looking out at what's happening in corporate news, Anglo-American Platinum is expected to update the market on its fourth quarter performance sometime this week. Well, this comes as the company also moves to find a replacement of their CEO. We just woke up to news this morning that Mr. Chris Griffiths, who unexpectedly resigned from his position at that Anglo-American Platinum company after 7 years at the helm. So that is one of the news, the companies that are making headlines here in South Africa. And also seeing that AB InBev, the world's largest brewer, announced plans to launch a new 5.4 billion rand black empowerment scheme. And this will see, retail the opportunity to invest in this new empowerment transactions where that company is concerned. So those are the two major companies that we saw making headlines in terms of, corporate news.
Many thanks, Katligo Ligodi. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Same to you. Thank you very much.
We move now to Egypt, where unemployment rate fell to 8% in the fourth quarter of 2019 from 8.9% in the same quarter in 2018. Data from the State Statistics Agency shows that on a month-on-month basis, unemployment rate increased by 0.2% compared with the third quarter's 7.8%. The Nairobi Securities Exchange has appointed SCL Advisory Limited to help widen its customer base on data business worldwide and generate increased revenue from existing and new data sets. The NSE Chief Executive Officer, Jeffrey Odundo, says the appointment will support the exchange grow its data business as it seeks to diversify the group's revenue streams for optimal shareholder value. SCL Advisory Limited will play a significant role in expanding the NSE's data client base to international and local investors. And for crude oil prices, they edged higher as investors brace for economic data in Asia showing how coronavirus epidemic has affected oil demand. Brent crude was lower, rather. It dropped to $57.27, while U.S. crude futures were unchanged at $52.05 a barrel. Investors are anticipating that the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies, including Russia, will approve a proposal to deepen production cuts, and that's in a move to tighten global supplies and support oil prices.